My dad has told me a lot of things over the years, but one of them really sticks out to me. He says, Joshua, that's how my dad says my name, Joshua, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Now, Jesus also said this, which is actually what we're going to talk about today. But when Dad says this stuff to me, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, what do you think that means? Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. For Dad, he would always say there's certain things that you need to do because they're right, not because you want other people to see you doing it. So it'd be like if you are at home and you decide on your own free will to do something that's good. Maybe you want to dust the windowsills. And you just get up, you find the feather duster and you do it, and then you just sit back down. Most of the time, I know you, most of the time you'll do that, but then later you'll say, hey Mom, just wanted you to know I dusted all the windowsills. Maybe because you hope that she'll just say, you are so great. You are the best kid ever. Or maybe you're hoping that she'll give you $1. Or maybe you're just holding on to that card so that when you go to Target and you see a toy that you want, you can say, hey Mom, just wanted you to know I dusted the windowsills the other day and I think that's probably good enough to get me this Lego. There's things that we do sometimes to get what we want or to make people say things to us, like you're great or you did this excellent thing. Like we live for that sort of affirmation. And the affirmation itself is not bad. It's really great when people can say, hey, I've seen what you're doing and I really appreciate it. That's great that they can say that, and it's great that you can hear that and receive that. But when we start doing things just to get that, we're missing out quite a bit. So in Jesus's Sermon on the Mount, this is a large bit of teaching in Matthew chapter 5 and 6 and 7. And remember, we've got 4 gospels that tell the story of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. They are called the gospel according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And here we're in the book of Matthew, and in chapters 5 through 7, Jesus is teaching a really painfully long sermon. It's like an all-day affair, okay? And it's broken down into these little nuggets of teaching that if you were to just read 3 or 4 verses, it's enough for you to sit with for an entire day or week or lifetime. If you want to do a really cool thing with your parents or whoever is around, you can read just a little portion of the Sermon on the Mount every night, and it'll give you stuff to think about, and it will shape you, hopefully. It will help you to think about how to act and live in the world. But this is what Jesus says. He says, be careful not to do your acts of righteousness, if you are curious. Jesus outlines a few acts of righteousness in this sermon. Prayer, fasting, which is not eating food, like you skip lunch in order to pray or in order to listen to what God might be telling you, or in order to focus your attention on something, like you're responding to something that is important, something that's going on in the world. But so you're praying, you're fasting, and then also he says your acts of righteousness in this passage are giving to the needy. Okay, I want you to hold on to that. He says, be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before anybody, before people, to be seen by them. Don't do good things so that people see you. Don't walk around feather dusting saying, I'm feather dusting the windowsills now. I am helping my brother with his homework now. I am sweeping up the grass clippings from the sidewalk now. Like, don't do that, he says. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. I want you to just put that off to the side for a second, because I want you to think about doing things that are right and good simply and solely for the sake of doing them because they are right and good, okay? Jesus says, so when you give to the needy, this is the third act of righteousness, prayer, fasting, giving to the needy. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by men. This is where I thought it'd be really funny because Tessa's dad, I don't know if you know this, but he plays the saxophone. So I wanted to send Tessa out onto the streets and just start doing random acts of kindness, random good things that are right and good, picking up trash and putting it in the trash can, helping people with their groceries. I don't know what she would be up to, but every time she did, I wanted her dad to slip out from behind the corner and start playing the saxophone just to announce to the people, hey, Tessa's doing a good thing. I thought that'd be funny. But what Jesus is saying is don't start doing what we've been talking about. Don't say, I'm doing this good thing now, Mom. Like, that's not the point. He says, do it in secret. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. If your right hand is doing something good for the benefit of others, don't tell everybody about it. Just do it because it's right, because it's good. He says, I tell you the truth, these people have received their reward in full, the people that are giving to the needy. But when you give to the needy, he says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing so that your giving may be in secret. And then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So here's the deal. When we get right down to it, what Jesus is saying is don't do good things. Don't do right things because of what people will say about you, or because you want to be noticed by people. Do the good and right things because they're good and right. Now, what's also interesting about this passage is the focus is on giving to the needy. And this is something that has been in legislation for all throughout the Bible. In the Old Testament, there was legislation or laws that were written to make sure that people were caring about the poor, the immigrant, the people that are not from, in this case, from Israel, that have migrated to the land, the people that didn't have a husband or their husband had died, or the people that didn't have parents, orphans, and the widows, and the poor, and the immigrant. Like, there was laws that were written so that people would be aware that they needed to help them. There's one really cool one where it's about harvesting your grain. And it says when you harvest your grain, make sure that you leave some for other people to come and glean. People who have lost a loved one, or for kids that don't have parents, or for poor people. Like, make sure that you have things left for them. Don't hoard all of your resources, but share them with others. Now, you guys can do this. You can already do this because I know that in your rooms right now, you probably have a lot of stuff that you don't use, that you don't need. But because of how we live, we usually end up with a lot of things. I know I do. I know my kids do. And it might be that you can give to the needy by donating some of your toys to Goodwill. It could be that you could give to the needy by donating some of your money to a good local organization that's caring for people. It might be that instead of saving up to go buy a Lego, that you could save up and buy a Lego for somebody else. There's things that you can do now to care about people who maybe have less than you do. And you can begin that practice right now. And here's the thing, when you do that, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. In other words, don't tell everybody, I went to Goodwill today with all of my old Legos. Because then that just takes away from the good thing that you've done because it's good and right. There are things, guys, there are things that we need to be doing simply and solely because they are the right things to do. And I think this is what Jesus is getting at. Live in a way that honors God. live in a way that resembles the life of Jesus, who gave everything that he had for the benefit of others. And we get to do that right here and right now. And when you do, don't let somebody come around the corner with a saxophone announcing all of your good things. Love you guys. Think about that, and hopefully you can act it out sometime in the very near future. We'll see you soon.